Meet Kendra. She is a sellsword in a land of fantasy and adventure. If you enjoy sword and sorcery in the tradition of Dungeons and Dragons, then seek out Kendra the Sellsword #1. Now on Kickstarter.
Hello everyone, this is Ben Dunn, founder of Antarctic Press, a comic book company established in 1985, creator of such comics as Warrior Nun, Ninja High School, Marvel Mangaverse, Mighty Tiny, Tomorrow Girl, and a host of other creations. So, recently we had our Antarctic Press production meeting yesterday. We talked about all sorts of stuff, especially the upcoming Antarctic Press Birthday Bash coming this March, or next March, in 2025, where we'll be celebrating our 40th anniversary. And we hope it'll be there. It'll be on March 14th, and it'll be one day only. So be there or be square. So recently, I've been listening from some fellow YouTubers about the comic books collecting is strictly for the money. Now, I'm not going to name names because I don't want to get involved in any kind of petty squabbles, but I have to comment on that assessment. And I say, well, duh. People collect things for all sorts of reasons. You know, they do it because they love it. They do it because they feel like they can make some money off of it. Why not make some money off of a hobby, or something that you like? The thing is intent. It's one thing to collect something just for the sake of getting a financial return. It's another thing to get into it because you love it and you want to sustain your hobby and connect with other fellow hobbyists, and exchange, stories, exchanged whatever you're collecting with one another, brag about how good your collection is, talk about the people involved in your hobby. Now, comics is a really interesting hobby, in my opinion. It's an art form, and yet it's not. It's very commercial. So, the best way I can put it is like it's a commercial art form. Comics were never meant to be collectible. Yeah, I'm sorry, I had to break it to you. It was never intended to be collected. It was priced and distributed in such a fashion that it was meant to be disposable. You weren't meant to collect them. Not like books. You see, books were expensive back then. People bought books. They paid a lot of money for them. They were very intricately put together. They were something that only really people who could afford it could buy. But when the advent of newspapers being able to collect newspaper strips, comic strips, into a book format, someone got the bright idea, hey, we can make money selling old comic strips in a new format. And that's how comic books were born. Now, of course, there were the pulps. The pulps were basically cheap dime novels, things like that. They were meant to be consumed, bought cheaply, and thrown away. The reason that Golden Age comics are expensive is because there's not too many of them out there. There's more collectors of them than there are available material, and that's how they're priced. Because people simply just didn't keep them. Now, when the advent of comic collecting became lucrative, where people actually were buying comics way above their cover price, asking hundreds, thousands of dollars for certain comics, that's when people started to take notice of the hobby. That's when people began to basically, exchanged and bought and sold comics to each other. For the vast majority of the people out there, they don't care about comics. They only care about how much they can make on the comics. If somebody in your family finds grandpa's old comic book stash and they happen to be, really valuable, do you think they even know the value of the comics? No, they take it to a comic book store or somebody who is knowledgeable in comics and see what the value is. Or if they have no idea and they just look at it as just a bunch of grandma's moldy old comic books and put it out in a garage sale for $1 a piece, then with the luck of a draw, somebody who knows about comics will see them and maybe haul away with a huge treasure trove of valuable comics. Because, knowledge is power. If you know what comics are worth, then you can basically take advantage of people who don't know. Unless you're one of those collectors who really honestly want to tell people what their comics are worth. For the most part, most of us as collectors will gladly take those comics away at whatever price the person is selling them for. Now, me personally, I love comics. I grew up with comics. I read comics. I know a lot about comics. Now, I grant you, I'm not a big follower of modern comics because they just don't seem to have the same resonance, have the same appeal that older comics have. And now, comics now are being touted as collectibles, not as entertainment. You see, that's where I think the comic industry is making a big mistake. Now, a lot of people will say, but Ben, collectors are what's keeping the comic industry afloat. Well, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. Collectors are keeping the comic book industry afloat. Well, then, okay. That's just the way the market is talking. But wouldn't it be better if we got people who just want to read them to actually read them and buy them on a regular basis? Wouldn't the industry be so much better if somehow we as an industry could collectively get together and try to tell people, yes, comics are great value, entertainment value. Not only will it's get young people to read, and really that's such a fundamental aspect of human beings, is that we are able to communicate through reading, through speaking, through the sharing of ideas, through print. This is how we communicate with words. And if somehow comics can somehow instill the love of reading to young people, then I think comics will have served a grand and noble purpose. The thing about comics is that it's not a commodity. I think people make the mistake that comics are an investment and a commodity. It's not. Comics were always meant to be disposable entertainment. We need to look at it that way. If you feel like you want to keep your comics in as the best condition as you possibly can, then great, do it. You have that choice to do so. And if you feel like your comics are going to be worth something down the line in the future, fantastic. That's good for you. Okay, but I tell you what, if your heirs, tell me which one your heirs would rather have. A box full of gold and silver, or a box full of stocks and bonds, a box full of deeds to real estate, or comics. Comics are fun. I love comics. Comics are great. Nothing pleases would. I always love watching these videos where people find old boxes of comics and pull out some really valuable ones. But for the most part, most people don't give a crap about old comics. They really don't. It's only a small select community of us who really value the comics that we collect. For the most part, the only reason people who don't collect comics, all they care about is how much money they can get out of it, and that's fine. That allows us as collectors to be able to get comics that we want, and add to our collection. But for the most part, comics are not investments. They're not. You can make money off of it. Don't get me wrong. But they're not solid investments. They can never be solid investments. There's a reason why, a lot of brokers don't include comics in their portfolio, because it's just too much of, a volatile market. You cannot rely on it. It's just one of those things that you have. The only reason comics have any value at all is because someone's willing to pay X number of dollars for it. And how many people are there out there who are willing to pay that kind of money? I would probably guess there aren't that many. However, if you try to sell precious jewelry, gold, solid, commodities, then that's where people take you seriously. We should look at comics as what it's meant to be: disposable entertainment, not as collectibles, not as investments. Oh, sure, it's great, if a comic you bought goes up in value, but that's a testament to you. You made a good choice. You picked something that was going to increase in value because other collectors missed out on it and want it now. Or it's just not available to them and they want it now. So you should just pat yourself on the back if you made a good choice in what you collect. But for me, I collect what I love. I've gotten to the point where in my collecting, I refuse to pay any more than $1 or $2 for a comic. Unless it's just something that's outrageously good deal. I mean, I'll tell you what, about 10 years ago, I bought an X-Men #1 and Avengers #4, from a collector, and he sold them each for me for $100. I did not pass that up. And if something were like that to come up with, I wouldn't be stupid, because I know I have knowledge. I know what these comics are worth. I can, if the bargain comes along, I am going to turn it away. But when I go to a comic book show, for the most part, all I hit are the $1 or $2 bins. Because I'm looking for stuff that I haven't read before. And believe me, there's a lot of stuff I have not read. And something grabs me, and I'm willing to pay $1 for it, I'll buy it for $1. If it so happens to go up in value, great. But that's not what I bought the comic for. I bought it because I wanted to read it. It looked interesting. Because, for me, it's all about the enjoyment of the comic and not the collecting of the comic. To me, the collecting of the comic is a side hustle that I utilize only so I can buy more comics, or to pay bills. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I mean, very rarely do a lot of us get the full value, the full so-called value of our comics. If we're ready to sell, chances are, unless it's some comic in some high demand, you're not going to get, whatever the perceived value is of that comic. I mean, very rarely. I mean, it happens. I wonder who in the world are paying these huge amounts of dollars for comics that are abundant or just are brand new. It seems like a poor decision as far as investments are concerned. But that's just me, because the value of the comic is the actual reading of the comic. The actual taking of the artwork. Really, that's where the value of the comic comes in. I mean, you can agree or disagree. You can I'm just an old man shouting at clouds, but that's my thoughts. Those are my feelings. So, but in the grand scheme of things, I am a comic book creator, and I do have a campaign going called KENDRA, the Sellsword, which is a fun action and adventure story that's in the vein of Dungeons and Dragons, and I think you should check it out. So the link is below. And until next time, this is Ben Dunn signing off.